This past season in 2024, I grew for the first time Salsify, or at least for the first time successfully. And so I want to talk about this plant a little bit, and I intend to grow more of it this year, or next year in 2025. And so this video will kind of start to explore where I'm at now, transitioning out of 2024 to 2025 with growing this Salsify, and some ideas and plans I have for it in the future. Alright, so this is Salsify. It's also called Oyster Plant because some people tend to think that the roots can kind of have like an oyster or kind of seafood type flavor to them. And so this plant, there are actually two species, but they're both in the Tragopogon genus. And so we have T. dubius and T. porifolius, and both of the species are native to Europe. This year in the garden I grew the porifolius, but both of these plants are hardy to USDA zones 5 through 9, so they can tolerate a pretty decent winter, and they are typically of a biennial nature, so they will grow as like a rosette the first year, send up some leaves, some vegetative growth, and then they'll overwinter, and in the next spring and summer they will flower and set seed. So that's over the course of 2 growing seasons, so they're biennial. Virtually the whole plant is basically edible, from the roots, leaves, flowers, the shoots, and the seeds, especially if they can be sprouted too and eaten that way. But the most commonly used part of the plant are the roots, and so these are typically either roasted, pureed, cooked into soups, a whole bunch of different uses, very versatile. They could be used similar to potatoes or sunchokes. Cool thing is that the leaves are very lance-shaped, right? So they look a lot like a grass, but they're actually salsify. They're edible, and I have eaten them, and they taste pretty nice, very mild and sweet, especially in the winter time, right? So they can be a source of greens, especially earlier in the winter, and maybe early in the spring as well. So that's a really cool thing, because I'm always kind of looking for different like local greens that I can add into like different dishes and foods during the winter time, when usually those parts of plants are not as plentiful. In terms of beneficial insects, usually when this plant is allowed to go to flower, so that would be in its 2nd year because of its biennial nature, different types of bees and flies can be attracted to the flowers, at least according to Illinois wildflowers. So really I'm very interested to see what types of insects specifically are interested in visiting those flowers. So that'll be a really cool thing to keep tabs on and kind of observe and pay attention to learn what types of bees, what types of flies, or any other insects that might like to visit that plant. So these plants, they don't take up a whole bunch of space width-wise, but they can get moderately tall, especially if allowed to go to flower. So usually we'll plant these plants 3 to 4 inches apart, or you can plant closer and then thin out later on, especially because sometimes these plants, per my experience, they don't always have the most stellar germination rates, but basically we plant those out, and as soon as the soil can be worked, right, as soon as that soil thaws, and we want to make sure the area where we plant it has loose soil and doesn't have a lot of rocks, right? We want loose soil because it's going to grow a really long taproot. And so for the food value, having loose soil where the plant can easily do this is ideal. Right. Also, along with that, we don't want a whole bunch of rocks in that area, because otherwise if they encounter a rock or some type of impediment like that, they will branch out around it, and that can be not quite as ideal either. Right. Also, maybe nitrogen excess may also cause that as well, so very similar to like carrots. So in terms of 2025, I do intend to order some more seeds. You can get them various places online. I think Seed Savers Exchange has some available, and I want to really experiment more with the germination to see if I can improve that. 5-6 years ago I tried growing Salsify, and I had what I think was a 0% germination, but back then I wasn't as familiar with the plant, so it's possible that I could have confused it with grass, and I thought it was grass instead of the Salsify coming up. But you know, I'm not totally sure about that. That was a long time ago. But in 2024, I did have some germinate, and fortunately, you know, I had remembered where I planted it, and at first I thought it was grass, right, that had come up, but then upon closer examination I found it was actually the Salsify. So that was really cool, really exciting that I finally had success with being able to germinate and grow this Salsify plant. So I may try to experiment with planting times, planting it earlier. I think I planted it later, probably closer to May or so. It may have been even into June, and so maybe I'll try planting it earlier, maybe even in April, kind of see how it goes. Usually in this area we'll plant carrots in April too, so it might be a good time to plant Salsify as well. It could also have been a low soil moisture situation. Maybe we didn't get enough rain last year, and so that hindered germination. And I'm also wondering if I might be able to plant the seeds and then use a board, right, and just put like a plank and put that on top of the seeds for the first few days or so to make sure that the moisture stays in there and like the sun or anything like that doesn't dry it out, and see if that might help improve germination rates, right? Kind of like what we might do for carrots sometimes. So thank you so much for checking out this video on Salsify. It's a really cool plant. It's another root crop, and I'm a huge fan of root crops, you know, whether it be sunchokes, parsnips, things like that, especially these are root crops that can overwinter and be able to provide food throughout the leaner months of the year when maybe other food supplies might be short or not existent. And so this is another cool plant that can help to supplement a diet and add nutriment and enjoyment. So thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video. Take care.